Hey guys, so I'm just doing a long drive and I wanted to try something different and just do a general rant of some of my thoughts that I've had in the past couple of days. And so, like since I'm on a long drive, I figured I could just see how well this works and, just put some of my thoughts. So one of the things I want to say is I've been thinking a lot about having an effective bullshit meter, like being able to see the bullshit from the truth. And that is something that is gonna get harder, I think, in the future, but it's an important skill to have. And an example of a bullshit meter would be like, for instance, when Tesla is like this company that is disrupting the automotive industry and completely like wrecking it. And so much so that from my perspective, I'm a little nervous about how powerful Tesla is going to become, because they have such an advantage, such a head start on hardware, software, and like the self-driving capabilities of vehicles. But Tesla is in that position. They're winning. Tesla is winning, and they look to become like this dominant like player in the world. Like they're probably going to be the most valuable company in the world. But you wouldn't think that if you looked at the traditional media, or if you looked at traditional outlets, or if you looked at it from a surface layer. So that's what I mean by a bullshit meter. Like, if you look at it just on the surface level, you're gonna see lots of reports about Teslas that are damaged or come out of the manufacturing, or get in accidents with automation, like their automated software gets in accidents, etc. But what you never hear people talk about is what is the ratio of that in relationship to the cars on the road. What's the ratio? Like, you don't even hear that being talked about. Like, what is the, like, it is irrelevant if you see a car that was made improperly. Like, if I see, like, I'm sure, like, I'm in a Toyota Tacoma, right? If I see some guy on YouTube talking about, look at my Toyota Tacoma, my window is broken, whatever, right? Well, you're gonna, if they're producing 1 million cars a year, you're gonna have some vehicles that are gonna have defects. It's about ratios. It's about what percentage. Anyone who's worked in engineering knows about quality control. It's a distribution curve. Everything in our reality is statistics. And so that's the context that you have to view reality in order to have your ability to detect bullshit. Like, if I see someone doing some emotional piece, or doing some, like, it could be about a lot of topics, like a police shooting, etc. You got to ask, well, what is that in, like, is that police, like, how many police shootings are there a year? I think it's very, very low, right? So you gotta ask these numbers, like, how important is this in the context of society? Like, if society really cared about deaths, etc., they'd be talking about cancer or something like that, like where it's like 30% of people die from this, right? But people talk about other more emotional things, but they're not, they don't think in terms of what is really affecting most of us. Heart disease, right? You don't see people talking about that, like, oh, everybody's fat. Like, how come nobody's talking about that? Like, and how America's diet is absolute garbage. Like, why aren't people talking about that? But, like, it's ratios. What's affecting us? And it is the food. The food affects all of us here in America. This is for Americans. The food affects all of us, because every store you pass, etc., it's garbage food. Anyways, I don't want to, like, well, I mean, I guess this is just a rant. This is an open rant. I'm just kind of ranting. But this rant is about bullshit. Like, and it's the same thing with investments. Like, how many of these cryptos have people who believe what they're saying, and how many of them don't have people who are presenting the stuff and they don't believe what they're saying? And how many of them are saying something and they're somewhat confident? So you got to have a bullshit meter with that. You know, your bullshit meter is pretty damn important if you want to be successful. You know, so that's just something I've been thinking about. Like, you know, because I saw like I watch all these channels. I watch a lot of stuff with technology trends, etc. And you know, I see people reporting about these different things, and you know, that's why we all, like, in this investing journey, ultimately you have to rely on yourself, because only you can really create the patterns and the probabilities, or the understandings of the probabilities, for your own personal approach, because life is complicated and it's difficult to really know what the truth is. You know, like, there's some things that we can say with certainty, right? Like, we can do a spectrum analysis of what makes up the spectrum range of green, and we could really say between something nanometers and this nanometers is the color green, and that would be something we could scientifically say with certainty, right? Or, you know, like, you could do things like that and have specific statements on reality that are not up to determination, or not up to interpretation, but are determinable. Like, you know, like, there are things that we could, that are clear cut, that we could understand in a shared context with each other as we communicate. There's things that we could collectively understand. That's kind of science, right? That's physics, that's math. We could reach common conclusions. But when it comes to more complex things, like whether something's a good investment, whether the odds were there or not, you're talking about a giant web of interconnections of like making the ultimate probability very difficult to determine, because a project's probability of success is determined on many different factors: the team, the project's market fit, the timing. All these things come together to create some ultimate probability that that project will be successful. And you know, like, in the long run, that is my goal, is somehow to turn my understanding, like my expertise, my understanding of all this stuff, you know, like, I basically right now I'm the model in the projects that I review. It runs through my mind, and that's the model. But, you know, like, turning that into something where there's an AI that does it, it would be the ultimate bullshit meter detecting machine. And that's kind of what the model's goal is to kind of like cut through the bullshit and really determine what is the probability that something will succeed. And that's actually more difficult than you would think. But, you know, I could see from my statistical analysis of my calls, you could see that there is some kind of correlation, that when I make a call, it is more likely to be successful. But, you know, I want to get that gap to be bigger. But it is trending in that direction, so that you know, that's the goal. But, you know, I guess that's the rant. We'll see how the audio is on this. And if the audio is good, I'll throw it up online. All right, later, guys.